We shall start the proceedings. Welcome all to Chips and Grips for July. Thank you all for joining, and thank you those who watch this later when it's posted up on the web. Today's topic is trying to get a little understanding and share knowledge about what those who represented us and went to Minneapolis for the AAW Symposium, what they saw and what they learned. So that's what we would like to hear from those of you who attended. Anybody want to start?
I can,
All right.
since I'm wearing the official shirt,
Aha.
and, it was St. Paul, not Minneapolis,
Ah,
and
yes. Sorry.
they're very prideful about that fact. Um, anyway, I put down a bunch of notes. I'll try to get through them quickly. A lot of them have to do with the symposium itself. Um, in terms of techniques, there were a couple of things I learned, and I would say the biggest thing I learned regarding technique is just being inspired. Some of these things that these folks are doing are just amazing. Um, First thing I want to mention is I volunteered. I was part of the video crew, and basically I did the same thing at AAW that I do for PA, and that is sitting at the computer. And I was in a separate room, and I would be monitoring Zoom and ensuring that questions are repeated and making sure that any questions that came over via chat were transferred to the demonstrator. I was kind of like the voice of God coming from the speakers. People didn't know where I was, but my voice was showing up. Um, First thing I want to say is Emma Cook is truly tiny. So the fact that she has called herself the Tiny Turner is absolutely correct. I was excited to see her doing her cupcake boxes, and they're significantly different from what we're going to see from Susan. She does all hand carving, and Susan will be showing us how to do it with power tools. And the hand carving is nice, but I think I'd rather learn how to do it with power tools. I did notice as I went through the the list, a significant number of the demos were related to embellishment, and a number of them were techniques that I truly had no interest in. But then there were some that were just amazing, and I can't wait to try. So you just have to be very selective when you're picking your class. Um, should I just go through, or should these be points of discussion and others who attended can comment on them as well, or people ask questions? How would you like to do this, Bruce?
Well, I would think while you have the floor, why don't you just go through yours and then
Okay,
people can comment if they want to, those who also attended,
okay,
and we'll go that
all
way.
right. I'll just keep going. Um, Working in the studio, I was assigned to 5 out of the 10 classes or demos. And what that did is it required me to go some demos that I probably wouldn't have attended otherwise. And from the most part, I was very glad because I got to see things that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. And so that was pretty cool. Um, and I keep mentioning this volunteer thing because I truly believe by volunteering at the symposium, I got a lot more out of it because I was involved with leaders of AAW. I got to know some of the world famous Woodturners better, more intimately, because I would have to have conversations with them. And I also thank Dave Madden for introducing me to a number of very famous Turners who I got to socialize with in a couple meals. So that was nice. So hang around with Madden when you go to a symposium because he'll introduce you to lots of people. Um, the banquet was okay. Certainly do not go for the food. Um, the best thing about the banquet was the community. Got to meet some people, hear some things, good presentations. it was they gave Richard Raffin a lifetime membership in AAW, so it was really nice to see the presentation about him and hear his response to it. He wasn't there, but he provided one via a video. Streaming, I think this was the third year for streaming, and we had significant technical issues. And so I felt bad for the people who had paid the money for streaming. Um, Luckily, the recordings are available to those who signed up for streaming and those who attended. And I've actually watched a couple. Um, and that's a really nice benefit to attending the symposium is the ability to see videos afterwards. Um, but hopefully they'll get the streaming issue resolved for next year. Probably one of the highlights of the symposium was the instant and pop galleries. The pop galleries are the ultra professional, super, super artistic, amazing work. The instant gallery is the gallery where anybody can submit anything, but in both, the level of talent is just mind-boggling. I truly appreciated a lot of what people are doing, and the creativity is incredible. I do have a problem with the winner of the pop gallery, um, best in show. Spence and I looked at that piece and could not find one bit of wood turning on it, so that was a little frustrating. That I thought this was a wood turning symposium, and they gave the award to something that was a beautiful piece of art, but it looked carved to us. Um, be careful when you go to a demo where the demonstrator is not from the US or England or Australia, because sometimes the accents were just impossible to understand. And you just really had to do the best you could trying to understand and to get the information um, from the video. Speaking of the video, one thing I did learn, and this is something that is going to be an instruction for the guys controlling our cameras, is the first thing they told us in our training for the video is if you look out at the audience and you see that people are watching the demonstrator and not the screens, you're not doing your job, because the whole idea of doing the video is to have people watch the screens, because obviously it's a lot bigger, more detailed. But if you're not watching the screen, that means or if they're not watching the screen, you're not doing your job. One of the demonstrators was from France, and he did something called a Canton ball, not a demo I would have gone to, but I'm so glad I did. I am so inspired by this piece of art. I definitely am going to try it. But what I also learned is when you look at all these demonstrators, they have developed a following because they have created a signature piece. And the gentleman who did the Canton ball, I can't remember his name, and then John Beaver, who does the wave bowls, and Emma, who does her chameleon powder, and it just, these very famous demonstrators really develop a singular piece, and that's what they do all the time. And that's great. They get fame and fortune for doing it, but it would drive me crazy doing the same thing all the time. But anyway, that was just kind of an interesting thing.
Chuck,
Spencer, yes.
was that Lauren Brucken?
Yes, Brucken. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
I actually met him, so.
Yeah, he was great personality. But here's the thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that, his name, Susan. The fact that a lot of these demonstrations were related to embellishment, we didn't learn a lot of turning techniques. And Lauren was one of those people that says, hey, I'm not a wood turner. I turn these balls, but what I am known for is the way I embellish them. So he actually was using techniques that were not really something you'd expect to see from a professional woodturner. So that was kind of interesting. The other thing, Spence and I, and I'm hopefully not stealing Spence's thunder on this, is try to avoid demos if you can anticipate they're going to use specialty tools. And there was a gentleman by the name of Alain Malland. Again, his accent was almost impossible to understand, but he used tools that none of us would ever do. He custom made all his own tools. None of us would ever have those tools. And so it was just like, okay, this was interesting, but why? Spence and I actually walked out because one of the things he did wrong, and I did put this in my comments, he never showed us in advance what he was going to do. And so I know this is something that Ken has talked to demonstrators. For us is make sure you tell people what you're going to do before you do it. Because then that kind of gives a context for what they're doing. So that was a very disappointing demo. And Spence and I moved on someplace else. Simon Begg, I forget where he's from, Belgium or something, but and his accent was fine. But he did something called a German ring that his demonstration was perfect. He had slides, and it was kind of like the way Henderson and Heidi did their demos. They had slides in the beginning, and they did a very good explanation about what works, what doesn't work. Here's what I'm going to do, very detailed instructions up front. Then they did it. And they showed why what they talked about in advance worked. And he did this German ring, and you've probably seen them where you turn this ring and then you cut it in half or cut a wedge out of it. And the profile that's left in the wood is a shape, a horse or a bird, I mean, it's just truly amazing. His techniques were off the charts in terms of how to be so precise. And I'm definitely going to watch his video again so that I can maybe take some notes. It was, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Dave, for showing that. It truly was breathtaking to see what he could do. No specialty tools, just truly excellent measuring skills and precision. I definitely want to give that a try. But I'm going to end up talking about what was my favorite demonstration of the entire symposium, and that was Nick Cook. And that was the last one that I actually worked. Nick is a production turner, lives in Georgia, is a production turner. He started off by talking about how he has made over 250,000 bottle stoppers, and selling those bottle stoppers paid for his house. So truly a whole different way of approaching wood turning. Would drive me crazy. Couldn't do it. He was amazing. I kept a little log, and I still have it because I was working that demo. Every time he finished an item, I wrote the time on the clock. So in an hour and a half, he made 13 different items. Think about that. Hour and a half, I'm lucky if I get halfway through one thing. He had done 13. And primarily, and he's doing all spindle turning and creating tops and spindles and ornaments and a salt shaker that was just brilliant. I can't wait to try. But doing a lot of it with a skew, requiring very little finishing. He goes and buys wood and just cuts it into spindles, square spindles, and just produce. What an amazing demonstration. I would love to have him for an IRD. And I asked him if he does IRDs, and he said no, because it takes too long to clean up his shop and he's losing production time. So the only way we would get a demo from Nick would be in person, and it'd be something to consider possibly in the future. Just one of the most entertaining demos I ever went to, and I'm really glad I went to. So that's all I had on my notes. I've occupied the first 15 minutes of this. I apologize, but any questions or comments on anything that I talked about?
I also went to Nick Cook, but I saw his lidded box presentation.
Oh, okay.
And he was pretty amazing. He also did multiple lidded boxes in the hour and a half, and he's like, what am I going to do with all this time? But I've started to watch the video that you must have been involved with. And I don't know if you were running the camera or what, but it was very well done. And one thing that Nick Cook said that I thought was it really struck home with me. He said, people start out wood turning and they do one of this and one of this and one of this. And he said, some of my great teachers told me, do something and do it many times. And that's where you really build your skills. So the one I was watching the other day he started with a honey dipper. So I'm guessing that's the session.
Yeah.
And you were
You're going to hear my voice on that one.
And, he said that several times, repeat what you're doing. So as I'm making my 7th wig stand right now, I keep thinking about that, your skills get better and how to do this certain step really improves every time. He was also I asked him how fast he was turning in the demo I went to, and he said he turns at like either 3,200 or I think 3,200 RPM. But he said, I'd probably start at 1,500 RPM. But he's so fast. He made everything look so easy. And he told us that he was one of the original founders of AAW, that one of the, 40 founders that started AAW with David Ellsworth. So I thought that was very interesting with him too. That's all I'll comment on your.
Oh, okay.
Susan, you sent me some pictures. Would you like to go next?
You're on mute, Susan.
You're on mute, Susan.
Do you have those pictures available, Bruce?
I do. Now, stand by. I got to find the right button.
Okay, let me talk about the one, because Dave Madden actually, we were talking about the wood gallery in the Landmark Center in St. Paul, which Ken and I have spent probably 4 or 5 hours in and really enjoyed, because it's the only wood turning museum that I've ever seen. And I was very intrigued by the historical lathes there. And Dave actually told me the guy who owns one of the oldest lathes there he sells Vic Mark lathes now from Calgary, Canada. And I've got the name of his company is Branches to something. Can't remember off the top of my head. But his family, this lathe came from, I think, the 1700s in Norway, and came down, and his family was brought across, actually fell off the ship into the ocean at one point, and another ship picked it up. And this lathe is in the Gallery of Wood. Well, he had not seen this lathe since he was 6 years old. This was the next time he had seen it. And Dave told me to go talk to him. So I went down and I talked to him for a while. And I said, I love that lathe. And he told me the next day he was going to be at the gallery at 11 o'clock. So this must have been Monday. And so we went, and Dave and Sue were also there. And we got to see them using this lathe. He and some other professional woodturners were there. Richard Findlay was there. Kalia, those of you guys who were in Portland last year might remember her. She, I think, did some presentations on milk paint. She was there. Emmett Kane, who's from Ireland, he was there. There were a whole bunch of professional turners, and they made this lathe go. And I got a couple of videos. Can you get him turning? So that's how they made it go with this big wheel. So a couple of guys were doing that. I think that's Emmett Kane in the blue shirt there. And then the gentleman who owns the lathe, and I'm not thinking of his name. Sorry, we're in Phoenix dog sitting right now, so I don't have all my stuff with me. Dave might remember his name. He's actually turning on the other video. If you
now
can.
I got to go back and get the thing open again.
Sorry. Didn't mean to make it complicated. So that was such a treat to be able to see that historical lathe being used. And he just turned a little bit of a spindle, but it was the first time he had seen it since he was 6 years old. So that was quite a fun historical experience to be able to be a part of on Monday. As far as I actually did the opposite of Chuck. I went to almost all wood turning presentations for my demos, almost all of them. I think I went to one or two on embellishing, and I went to Stuart Farini's he did a textured colored platter, which I've really admired. It was blue and kind of carved around the flute, and I wanted to see his presentation on texturing and coloring, and he used airbrushing with paints. But most of my presentations I went to all on wood turning. I did see Simon Begg too, and I have in my notes that he was from Wales, but now teaches in Australia. And that was a great presentation on square edged bowls. I think Dave was at that one too. That was my last presentation. Oh, I'll let you go ahead and play this now.
Are you seeing it full screen?
Well, I'm on my phone, so somebody else respond.
There we go.
Dave, maybe you know his name.
His name is Ken Rude, and his company is Branches to Bowls out of Canada.
I have been purchasing from him, and Spence and I and Dave had breakfast with him in Chicago a year ago.
Wonderful. Well, that was a lot of fun to see him. And I think it was a great experience for him too.
He cheated. He used modern day tool.
Well, they do have some gouges in the Gallery of Wood that look awful lot like our bowl gouges, some historical tools. But anyways, I was mentioning Simon Begg did, I thought, a phenomenal job with the square-edged bowl. And for each of my wood turning presentations I went to, I think I'd like to try all of them. Phil Sykes was really good. He did hollow forms just using gouges with all of his hollowing. It was interesting. Every wood turner has different angles of their tools they like, of course. But I started, my first presentation was Ashley Harwood, and I don't have my notes here from her presentation, but the one thing I have to say about her is she probably tried to get us to buy her tools over a dozen times during the presentation. So that was a little bit disturbing. Her tools are a lot like Stuart Batty's, and I think Stuart Batty was kind of her mentor. She worked with him for a while. But and I got to see Stuart Batty. I think that's going to be a great presentation for our club, and I think he's demonstrating in September. He's one of our IRDs, so
Yes, that's correct. September.
we'll really enjoy that. And I went to, so I saw Emma Cook's demonstration on the color banded bowl, and yeah, she goes by Tiny Turner. Really enjoyed that, and Ken's got some of the products. He's got pictures of the products that she used, because she turned a bowl and she uses tiny little tools, which was the opposite of Ashley Harwood and Stuart Batty. They have these big, long handled tools. And anyways, Emma uses these tiny little short handled tools, and turned this bowl, and then made with a parting tool, I think she made the band that goes around the outside. And then I think did I send you that picture, Bruce?
This one?
She's holding the color banded bowl.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't see it. I'm not seeing
Bruce, we're just seeing your files. We're not
Uh-huh.
seeing the actual pictures.
I think you have to.
Yeah, click on the bold. There you click on the bold file, bold.heic.
That Doug?
No, that's Dave.
Oh,
All right.
So anyway, she actually finished the bowl during her whole hour and a half presentation, and she finished it. I think the first thing she put on it was Yorkshire grit. And we actually bought some of that at the symposium, but I've got the website. I can send it to you guys. And as I said, we're not at home, so I don't have everything with me. But they actually sold all of those products
How
downstairs.
about that?
There you go.
Yeah, now we see the pictures.
Yeah, so you can see that band around it. She used Yorkshire grit. Then she used, after that was almost like an abrasive, I think. And that was after she sanded to 240. Then she put the Yorkshire grit paste, which is an abrasive. Then she used Hunter Sheen microcrystalline wax on it. And then she says with that, she usually leaves it for an hour and buffs it. And then on the actual band that she used something called, what she called it, chameleon powder. Is that right, Dave? Because he's made
Chameleon flakes and chameleon powder.
Yeah, chameleon flakes. And first she used acrylic sizing for use with the metal leaf. So it gave it like this, it's very sparkly. And Dave, you've made one of those, you said?
A couple of them, yeah.
Did you get her product then?
Yeah, I ordered it from her in the UK.
Okay, there's also a place in the US.
Yeah, it's Jeff Hornig.
Yeah, walnut something or other.
Yeah, well, I'm looking it up here. He was actually a demonstrator as well too.
Yeah, he was. I didn't get to see him, but
Looking up his name now. Yeah, Jeff Hornig, and he runs
The Walnut Log.
Walnut Log. Yeah.
right. So we've actually ordered those products, but so far we haven't received them because that's the first project I want to do. I want to make one of those bowls, and she was very, very enjoyable to see. I know Ken had a couple things he wanted to talk about too. You want to tell him about the stop blocks bags?
Oh, something that I come across, a vendor. He was kind of on the side wall by himself. And some of you guys have probably heard of this. Stop loss bags. I'd never seen them before. where you put paint or finishes in them and expel the air and cap them. And he's had some finishes for years in these bags. They don't allow air to get to the product, and it stays perfectly good for practically indefinitely. So you can mix up, and they come in various sizes. I actually got talked them out of a set to take to the college, and yeah, it's kind of a neat thing because once you mix up, I find that when I mix up sanding sealer, you never quite know what the proportions are with the evaporation of the thinning agent. So that was pretty interesting.
And I noticed that Bruce was showing the pictures. Both of us went to see Richard Findlay, who's from England, I believe. And it wasn't totally a wood turning presentation, but we had seen this in Ireland and just had to go find out how they make these hand cut barley twists. And this is a picture of how he made it. And I don't know, do you want to talk about the barley twist?
Well, yeah, we've seen, chair legs and spindles on stairs and table legs and so on with this barley twist. And it's like, okay, how do you do this on the lathe? Well, basically all you're doing on the lathe is turning a spindle round and then measuring and marking out the twist, and then everything else is hand done with either rasps, files, saw to make the initial cut, and then shaping with, what did he call them? Kind of a grating, something you grate, I don't know, lemon peel with, or
the microplaners.
The microplaners.
Yeah, he used microplaners. And there's the picture with, I think that was files, wasn't it?
Well, in my session, he wait to the end to get started. So we didn't get to see a lot of it, but that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, he did the whole thing. I think he started with the small hand saw and then microplanes. He said he could use an angle grinder, but he didn't. He likes to do it all by Japanese saw rasp. And this is what the finished barley twist. This is I think he called this a double twist. There's a single twist and a double twist, but really fascinating. And Ken said he wants to try to figure out how to do it around a bowl, but it looked rather labor intensive to me, but it was still fascinating to watch.
A lot of handwork.
Okay, thank you. You throw that away.
Yeah, Ken, on your stop loss bags,
yeah,
I have a bunch. I highly suggest that if you do try to fill one, that you make sure that the floor around where you're filling it will be able to accept and not get ruined by whatever you're trying to pour in the bags. You will find an article, if you look long enough, how to make something to hold that bag while you're trying to pour the liquid into it. But I can tell you this, the ones I have are in a cabinet, and they are not coming out unless somebody wants to buy them.
So did you use the funnel?
Funnel, yes, but you need 3 hands or 4.
I have a thing that came with my bags that you just clamp onto a table and then you slip your bag onto it. I can bring it to the club meeting so you can see it.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. And if you want to help me with my epoxy floor, you're welcome to.
Yeah, Susan, bring it. We'd love to see it. So any questions or comments or?
Yeah, I'd like to throw something out there with regard to these stop loss bags. I tried them, like Howard said, they're messy, but I found this Ultra Duster. You can get this at Harbor Freight. It's just a can of air, but it's not oxygen. It's some kind of a propellant. And I just take the cap and off of like Danish oil or whatever, and I put this in and I spray it for a couple of seconds to displace the oxygen, and then I put the cap back on, and my stuff lasts a long, long time.
Yeah, that's a takeoff on something called Bloxygen.
Oxygen, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is like
Susan?
$1, a couple dollars for a can of this, and this is
I've tried that too, Dave.
yeah.
And what I like about the bags versus the can is the rim. It just getting the material out of the can, I invariably get material on the rim, and then I find the can is hard to open, and eventually I destroy the lid.
Sure.
The bags, the cap is about the size of a toothpaste cap, and all you have to do is keep those threads clean, and they're plastic. I've had excellent luck with the bags, and I just got them from Amazon.
Yeah.
I too have used the bags. I still use them now. And I didn't really have so much trouble. I used a funnel, had no less trouble than Howard did filling it. But one thing I learned in using it is you have to kind of develop a technique for squeezing the bag while it's upright into another container. Otherwise, you get this all over the place because it's hard to massage the bag right. You can't tip it up and pour it out. It's just too flexible. But there is a technique where you just let it set up right, tip the opening over into a container and squeeze the bag gently. And that seems to work well. The one downside I've had is one of the bag caps has cracked. And I was able to epoxy that cap back, and it's working fine. But otherwise, I've had very good success with these bags. I have all of our polypropylene wipe on poly is in those bags, and it seems to be working just fine. And I have used oxygen too. And the bags are easier to manage for me because of the same thing Chuck said. You still end up with a lid when you're using the Bloxygen.
With regard to the lid, if you can discipline yourself the very first time you open a can when everything's clean, so you take a little bit of Vaseline and you put it on the can lid, and then nothing sticks to it, and then you screw the lid on and off with a little Vaseline. I did that on my super glue too, where the little thing pops off. I put some Vaseline on there, and that keeps the super glue from sticking.
That is brilliant, Dave. Thank you. I love that idea.
I wish I would have thought of it, but I saw it on YouTube University, something like
yeah.
that.
We'll give you credit, Dave.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Am I on?
You are.
Okay. I was trying to speak earlier and something was wrong with my audio, but I too have the Waterlocks bags like a lot of you, and I have had trouble trying to get it to work right, like Howard experienced. I had a mishap in my workshop and ended up with some water locks on the shop floor because I wasn't doing it right. So there is a learning curve, but the end result is it works. It does keep the air out of there. The water locks has a shelf life, and it was pricey, so I didn't want to waste it. So,
hey, Mark, does the bag that you use have a flat bottom? Or because that's what I found with the bags I got from Amazon. They just stand up just fine.
They sort of do, but if you have weight and the bottom of the bag there, the top of it folds over.
Right.
And I had the bottom of it sitting into in the workbench. There's a well there, and I had it sitting there, and I thought it was going to be enough to hold it up, but I walked away to, I don't know, do something at the sink or something, and then I heard something, fall. I thought, no, and I went over there, and the valve was still open, and there it was just spilling out onto the floor. So So there's a learning curve. And like Howard said, you need three hands. So learning how to do that is certainly a process. I first learned of the stop loss bags from Jay Loden. He told me about it and showed me, and I thought this is great. So kudos to Jay for passing that on. But they work. But again, practice.
Okay, thanks. Dave, anything else you want to cover from since you were at the
Just a couple things. I didn't take extensive notes, but I had a blast. The people that went from the club were super fun. The weather was not very good. Rain. It was great if you were a duck. Um, I found a neat little breakfast nook right around the corner from the River Center. It's the dining car. What was it called? Chuck, do you remember? It was Jimmy's.
Wasn't it Mickey's Diner?
Mickey's Diner, and been there since 1939 or something like that. Great food. Got to talking to some other people from the event that were in there eating. Um, so that was kind of neat. I like a good breakfast. And some of the guys met me down there the next day for breakfast. That was fun too. But as far as the symposium goes, the event was nice. The venue was really nice. I found the vendor area wasn't as expansive as it was in like Oregon and in Portland. I thought the one in Portland was way bigger, and I was kind of expecting more vendors to be there, being as how it was at the home of the AAW. It's like D-Way Tools wasn't there, different ones like that. So I was a little disappointed in that. But I did get around and I met a number of the vendors there and spoke to them and tried to make a bit of a connection because I'll be asking them for their generosity come Christmas time for our club Christmas party. And so I passed around a whole bunch of cards. Chuck had made me some really neat cards with Prescott area Woodturner logo on there and such. So I passed around a bunch of those and talked to a bunch of vendors. And as far as the demonstrations goes, I think, I have two favorites. Obviously, Emma Cook was incredible. She's just such an entertainer and so fun to watch. She's so professional. She's very short. You can't see her over the lathe, so you have to watch her on the screen. Chuck and I got our pictures with her. I got her autograph because I'm quite the fan. And but I didn't get to see her do the bowl. I watched her demonstrate the cupcake. And the only thing I missed about not watching the bowl one is when she talks about the size that she puts on there. She says you have to wait till it gets sticky. And I love the way she says that. Anyway, what else? So I saw Richard Finley, but I think Spence was in this one too. He might have some stuff to say about this as well. But I saw him do this skew chisel master class. And I thought to myself, he had like 8 or 10 different styles of skew chisels out there. And I thought, wow, this guy's really good with a skew chisel. But did I learn anything? No. No, I didn't really. He was just too fast. His accent was a little bit hard to follow, but I didn't really learn. I didn't find that I took anything away that I could come home and go, oh, now I can use a skew chisel. No, that didn't happen. But it was pretty impressive to watch him use them. And then I think that the other one that I think was as good or even better than Emma Cook was Michael Blankenship, the blind turner. That was fascinating. In fact, I've watched his video again twice already since I came home. Just absolutely fascinating. If you didn't get to see that one and you have access to the video, that was just incredible to watch that guy work. Blind for 17 years, blind for 21 years, turning for 17 years. So he learned how to turn after he became blind, which I thought was fascinating as well, too. That's about all I got, really. I really enjoyed the trip. It was quite fun.
Good. Spence, how about you? You got anything to add?
Yeah, a couple of things. I always enjoy going to these symposiums. This one particularly, I got to meet a whole bunch of people that I had met in the past and kind of catch up. Uh, I was, as other people have pointed out, a little disappointed in the number and type of demonstrations. Most of them, over 50%, were embellishment demonstrations. And the problem that I have with an embellishment demonstration is that the person that is doing it, typically, if they do it a lot, they're an artist. I cannot duplicate what they do. So my viewing what they do is more or less a waste of time, unless I just want to be entertained. I would have liked to have seen more wood turning demos, but you when you go to a symposium, it's like going to any other kind of meeting. You win some and you lose some. One of the demos that I saw that was really interesting to me was actually the first one, and it was called Burl to Bowl. And the demonstrator, and I can't remember what his name is now, but was very thorough, did an excellent explanation job. It told us up front what he was going to do, talked about the different types of burls, where they came from, and what they look like if you cut them in different ways. But what really surprised me and impressed the tar out of me was that he decided to core this burl, and he got his McNaughton set out, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. Well, he started coring, and he took the knife and he went from the surface right into the bottom, just that quick. Well, it turned out it was a fresh burl. I'd never even heard of a fresh burl. All the burls we're exposed to are burls that are 6, 8 months, years old, and the wood has gotten very hard. So they're a challenge to core. So that was really fun. He had 2 or 3 that were were still wet, so wet that obviously it wet the shield between the audience. But it was a really good one. The couple of other demos that I saw that come to mind is the one that Chuck just talked about, and that was this French guy who, in my opinion, spoke about 25% English. So asking him a question was a waste of time because he would answer it, but he really didn't speak English well, so he didn't answer it very well. But he had these unique tools that he had. And I, for one, and I've said this to the AAW, they should not have a demonstrator at any of their symposiums that the people that are watching can't make an attempt to duplicate what they're doing. The idea of using special tools, I think, is really wrong. And these are very, very peculiar tools. They were very pointy, and he was turning burls and with these little pointy things. So it's really interesting. But and I'll agree with Dave. I was disappointed at the vendor area significantly. I expected that since the symposium was held in the AAW backyard, that vendors would be going all out. And I thought the vendor area was actually quite small, and I didn't do a very good job at representing the vendors that we are exposed to. But all in all, I had a great time with the people that I was with. Got a little wet on occasion, and it was just a lot of fun to spend time with both old friends and new friends.
Hey, Spence, you want to talk about our experience with Rudy?
I'm sorry?
You want to talk about our experience with Rudy?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I think most of you, well, not most of you, some of you go to our Tuesday breakfasts. And the Tuesday after we got home, Well, let me back up. Before we decided to go, Chuck came to me. He had a piece and he was wondering whether or not he should take it to the instant gallery at the symposium. And I looked at it and I said, absolutely, it's a masterpiece. Well, so he took it and put it in the instant gallery. And then he was bold enough to ask for a critique. It turns out that the individual that critiqued his piece was Rudy Lopez, who was a superb turner and an excellent critique of wood turning. He does a lot of stuff and he's been doing it a long time. So we met, he had an appointment. We met at the appointment. We walked to his piece. Rudy picked it up and first he said, you know, I just took a picture of this one. He looked it over in detail and looked at Chuck and said, there isn't one thing on this piece that I can critique on a negative basis. There was an absolute, slam dunk for Chuck. I couldn't, we're all so happy to hear that. It turned out later, in walking through the instant gallery, people were taking pictures of his piece. So it was a really nice experience.
Spence, you shared with me the one you went to on coring and the order in which you core the bowls.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting idea. I had learned to core if you clean off the face of a piece, and then you need to leave 10% of the diameter so that when if the bowl warps, you have enough wood to finish the bowl. And so you mark from the center out about every inch or 2 1/8 inches, 1 1/4 to the end of the bowl. And that's the way I learned to core. But at the symposium, I can't remember who it was, but anyway, the guy pointed out, he said, I have a question. Which is the most valuable bowl? When I'm going to core this, which is the most valuable bowl? And of course, the answer is the outside bowl, the biggest one. The bigger they are, the more valuable the bowl is. So he said, well, if that's the case, then why would you start in the center and make the most expensive bowl the last one you core, which occasionally you end up screwing up. So I decided, he made a lot of sense. So from now on, when I core from the outside in, and it sounds weird, but you take this massive chunk out of the middle, then you put another tenon on that, remount it. So you remount each time, as opposed to starting from the center, which you don't have to remount. But again, the important thing is that the largest bowl is the one that you really want to be careful of and take care of. So if you're going to make a mistake, it's far better to make the outside bowl fatter than it should be and miss that little small center bowl. So anyway, I came back with a good piece of information.
Good. Dave Madden, you were there. You got anything to add? As we close out here?
I was there, but I didn't get to do the demos like all you guys did. I wanted very badly to see Emma Cook. Had a lot of background with her in the past, so I wanted to see her cupcake box for a couple of reasons. And one was the fact that I had helped, I made part of the jig for Susan Murphy that I think you're all going to see next week or whenever, to do the cupcake boxes. So I wanted to see Emma do that. And I was disappointed for two reasons. Number one, Chuck screwed up the video part. So the video didn't, there was about a 15-minute delay. And I had determined that I was not going to be able to sit through all of Emma's demonstration, but I wanted to see what kind of jigs and fixtures she used to carve the box, the cupcake. And I was going to sit until I saw that and then leave. Well, I'm getting really nervous because the there were some video issues and it didn't get started for 15 minutes. And I'm looking at my watch and knowing that I got to leave shortly. And so she gets to the part, she turned a piece of wood round, watched that, big deal. And then she gets to the part where she's going to start carving the grooves. And out comes her carving tools and she starts hand carving. And I went, wow, Susan Murphy is way ahead of the game on this. So I left shortly after that. And I talked to some folks close to her and I said, why is she doing that? I mean, a jig is 10 times as fast. And the answer was she's into all kinds of woodwork. She built her studio. She did all kinds of stuff a long time ago and was learning all types of woodworking. And she decided she wanted to learn to carve. So she took a bunch of carving classes. And now she considers herself a carving purist and won't use any power tools to do that job. So, to each his own. And I kind of feel the same way about wood turning. And I'm going to share some of the thoughts that Spence has had in the past symposiums and this one. There's too much embellishing and not enough wood turning. And one of the things that frustrates me, working with the symposium committee, for the last 3 years, they've had people that basically do not ever turn on the lathe. They don't use the lathe at all. And that kind of disturbs me, being a purist in the AAW symposiums. I don't like to see that. And again, to each their own. And the AAW does the best they can to sort it out so there's something there for everybody. I did sit through one demonstration completely, and that was on the skew. And the main reason for that, for me, was to see what they were teaching based on what they were teaching like 6, 7, 8 years ago. And Jim Ector, I had seen him in the past, and I wanted to see if he had any revelations or anything new with the skew. And I wanted to see how they were teaching people that basically hate that tool. And I talked to Spence, and he had gone to the other one, the Frenchman, and he didn't like it. Didn't like the methodology and the fact that he was basically using a bidon, not a skew. And I explained that to Susan and Ken at the lunch area one day, and they did go to that and they did enjoy it. So the point being, there's something there for everybody. And one demonstration was seen completely 2 different ways by 2 people in our club. And I've become more a school of the demonstrators and how they proceed. And I've gotten some good comments from this today about, and I share with Spence, and especially those of us that are hard of hearing, it is difficult. We want to see these guys from UK and from Ireland and from France and so on. But some of those are absolutely impossible for the deaf of us to get enough out, to understand enough of what they're saying to really get anything out of the demonstration. And
hey, Dave, I hate to interrupt. Yeah. Mark has some things he'd like to say, and he's got to leave quickly. Can I switch to him for a minute?
Absolutely.
Mark, go ahead.
Hi, I apologize. I've got to leave for an appointment here pretty quick, but I wanted to say, I at the symposium, um, I went to the trade show. I wanted to learn how to do some thread chasing, and I bought this thread chasing tool from Carter and Son. And this several people in the club, Spence, Rick, and some others, I think maybe Chuck, um, uh, told me about this little tool. Has the inside teeth on this end for thread chasing, and the other one is for the outside. I went in the symposium to um, the demonstration. Jeff Hornung show this guy, and it doesn't show any examples of work that he has done there, but he was the demonstrator. And I learned a lot on how to use thread chasing tools. Having that knowledge, though, it's still a little bit intimidating to me to use this tool. So when I'm ready to do some work with it, I'll be contacting somebody in the club that has experience with it. My issue is, how do I line up the grain? When I'm finished with the thread chasing tool, I'd like for that grain to be matching where it screws on tight, and also how to get the diameter of the inside and the outside threads to match up. So I'm sure there's a lot of experience and knowledge within the club. So I'll be asking for help when I get to that point. I'm not there yet, but
When you get to that point, Mark, let me know. I'll be glad to help you.
okay. Yeah, great. I knew there was going to be somebody. I think Rick said the same thing and Spence. Um, so anyway, this looks and demoed. It was fantastic. I think it's going to be a good tool. But for the new people in the club, thread chasing is for a lidded bowl. You can put threads on the inside of that lid and the bowl itself to put the lid on. So anyway, that was my one item that I wanted to talk about. But also, overall, the symposium was fantastic. I really did enjoy it. Yeah, there was a couple of glitches here and there, but I did enjoy it. What I did come away with is the inspiration to go back home, go to my workshop, and get busy. So that it made me excited to get back in there and create some works of art, so to speak. So that's what I had to say about it.
Okay,
Any questions for me before I take off? I got to run. Okay.
Mark, did you have any comments about that resin guy that you saw, the John Underhill?
Yeah, I didn't learn a whole lot of new information from the resin guy. It was just kind of reinforced what I already knew, but it was a very good demonstration. Um, a lot of it. My biggest question was when is the high point, the temperature wise? And a lot of people say you gotta watch the temperature, gotta watch the temperature, and I'm still a little bit shady about, why should I watch the temperature and what's the significance of that? Albeit I've had some pretty good success with the resin pouring overall, but maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I haven't found anything better yet.
What
So,
brand of resin was he using for his demo?
I don't remember. There's so many brands out there now.
Right.
There's Illumilite, there's Let's Resin. There's I don't know, probably a dozen other ones. So I like using Total Boat. That's my go-to resin.
Okay.
So
Okay.
okay.
Thank you, Mark. We've exceeded our hour, but anything else to add by anyone?
Well, one thing that I had made a comment, I think, to this group before the symposium was to stop by some of the vendors. And I think that the note that I was making was to stop by MDI, and they always have demonstrations there with the professionals doing a little sideshow, I guess you'd say. And some comments from Chuck earlier about Nick Cook. I was a little disappointed this year that Nick did not perform in the Powermatic booth in the vendor area. And typically, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, a handful of professionals that actually do demonstrations ongoing in the vendor area, and some of those are very intriguing, and you're up close and personal to the Turners. And this year, this conversation today, Nick Cook comes to mind because he demonstrated in the past a lot for Powermatic, and at the Powermatic booth, and
Addie Spencer
did a lot of the same type of stuff that he did in his demonstration this year as a demonstrator. And also the guy with the barley twist, he has done that in a booth, and I can't remember which one, but I think maybe the MDI booth. He did the barley twist demo basically for free for anybody that wanted to come by there and watch his demonstration. Didn't even have to be registered for the symposium. Anyway, for any of you that are attending in the future, if you pay attention to that, there are some very good professionals or professionals to be, and some very good hints and tips to be taken out of those vendor booth demonstrations.
Okay.
And Nick Cook was one of the best.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anything from anybody else?
Can I just provide a couple more final comments? I think I saw a video, Dave, where Nick was doing demonstrations in the youth area.
He's done that too.
Yeah, that's where some recent videos that came out showed him down there. A comment regarding Powermatic. Powermatic is just an incredible sponsor for AAW, so keep that in mind as you make your purchases. They support us. Let's make sure we're supporting them. Susan, you mentioned Yorkshire Grit. I bought some last year in Portland, and I just used some the other day in a way that I've never used before, and that is on raw wood. I was thinking that it would prevent me from putting a finish on, but it's not. You can put a finish on over it. I have a finish on a piece of wood I'll bring next Tuesday that has some resin in it and some metal, and that and the wood are just unbelievably shiny. That Yorkshire Grit, the grit disappears. I guess it's diatomaceous earth, and it disappears after a while, but the finish it leaves is incredible. 2 more comments. The Tiny Turner, I went up to her because that was the first demo on the Friday, and went to move the box that they had available. And she says, I don't want that box. And if there's anybody in the world who needs the box to stand on, it's Emma. But no, she doesn't stand at the box. And I would say the spindle is got to be here on her. And that's the way she's used to turning, and that's how she does it. And then finally, those of you who have access to recordings, there are 2, and really signing up for the virtual symposium gives you access to 20 videos. And if you can't make it next year, it's an incredible deal. Yeah, and there we are with our friend Emma, thanks, Dave.
How short she is.
She is tiny. Two that I highly recommend is the Simon Begg. And the reason to watch Simon Begg is that is a guy who did a perfect demo. I just could not get over his teaching skills. And then the final other one is Nick Cook, just an amazing turner and incredibly entertaining kind of guy you'd like to have sitting at your dining room table and just talk with. What a super guy. So anyway, those are my final comments.
Okay. Thank you all for joining today. It's been a good session. Thank you, those that went to the symposium, for sharing your knowledge. And we look forward to the next
Dave
one.
has a comment.
This is all the demonstrations I'm going to go back and rewatch.
Great.
Tagged here in the book. So, yeah, it was a good time.
All righty. Thanks, one and all.
Raleigh, North
Thanks for
Carolina.
hosting, Bruce.
Yeah, we're